right, thank you so much for staying with us. Time now for the conversation that I told you about. We're asking you what you think drives Kenyan youth to offer bribes. This is in regard to a research that was conducted by Transparency International organization that is on Thursday, which happened to be the Africa Anti-Corruption Day, that revealed that, more youths offer bribes compared to the older people. So that's what we're asking today. Remember, you can engage us on social media at KTN News KE, at Grace Courier KE. I see a lot of your feedback already. I'll be sampling it, as we carry on with the conversation. And before I get to my guests, I think we would run this down. Okay, let me just get to my guests first. So I have with me Ruth Ndongo. There's Mr. Charles Abor and Ben Kinothia, who is a life coach, a motivational speaker, and a political analyst. Thank you so much for joining us. So before we get to run those statistics, which I know will be on our screens very soon, I'd like to start with one of the comments that we're getting. Okay, let me just take you through the statistics there. And basically, as you can see on your screen, a report from Transparency International organization which reveals that youths between the age 18 and 34 are more likely to pay a bribe more than their seniors. The report further says that more than 1 in 4 citizens paid a bribe to access public services such as healthcare and education. Poorest people are twice as likely to pay a bribe than the richest. 67% of citizens fear retaliation if they report corruption, and 53% are still optimistic that the war on corruption can be won. The last one there being 47% believe most, if not all, police are corrupt, 39% believe government officials are corrupt, and 36% feel parliamentarians are corrupt. Charles, let me start with you. You were nodding when, I was taking our viewers through those statistics. Why?
Yeah, I think for me, I think there are less opportunities with the high demand for those opportunities. So many people tend to fight for less opportunities. That would drive to giving out bribes. Yeah.
Okay. Ruth, there's one comment here that we already have from our viewers, Don and Zioka, who says, in Kenya, corruption is a way of life. Sadly, that is how the system works, and that is how we were brought up. To get a job, you need connections. To go to a good school, you need connections. To acquire good services, government or not, you need to know people. This is the trend acquired from the previous generation. So why should I suffer when I know there's a procedure that can get things done my way and faster?
And I agree to that.
You agree?
I actually agree to that because I feel like we are working from a broken system. So it is a monkey see, monkey do. What our parents taught us is corruption is a way of life. So it is kind of a lifestyle. So for them, they have grown up knowing that if I give a bribe, then if my parents got away with it, who am I not to get away with it? So it is a monkey see, monkey do. I even think we should not be surprised that these statistics are coming out this way. It is because we learned from our predecessors. And now we are like, because there is nothing coming out of it, and because all the corrupt people we've seen, they go nowhere with it. It's a corrupt, broken system. So we are trying to manage and work from a broken system going back. So for them, that's a way of life. So yes, I agree.
Okay. Actually, you did mention, from generation to generation, and I remember there's one comment that I'd seen. Someone was saying, remember when you were a toddler, if you cried, your mama would bribe you with milk to stop crying, or something nice like sweets and toys. So it looks like, you started a long time ago. This is where I rope you in, Ben Kinothia, a life coach and motivational speaker. Why do you think we are, where we are as at now, with the statistics there from Transparency International organization?
A very good morning and thank you. I think first and foremost, they needed to have said that these bribes are happening in what spheres of life. Because, for example, there are young people who are bribing in order to get opportunities. That is one. And there are young people who are bribing because they have been found in a situation or circumstance that they need to get themselves out of. I have had the opportunity to drive in Tanzania, for example. And for a road traffic offense, I remember one I oversped. And the fine was 30,000 Tanzanian shillings, which is equivalent of 1,500 shillings, which comfortably you feel you want to get a receipt for because it is 1,500 shillings for overspeeding. In our country, a young person who finds themselves overspeeding is looking at a fine of anything between 20,000 to 60,000. So even as much as you would want to be a law-abiding citizen, and you probably are driving your parents' car, it becomes impossible for you to contend with going to court and paying a fine of 50, 60,000. I keep saying driving and trying to eat a banana is a very dangerous affair. I mean, you're peeling a banana and you're trying to eat. It's not an offense in law. But it's an offense in law to speak on your telephone as you are driving. It tells you that to the government, it appeared that there would be more money to be made from people who are speaking on their mobile phones than from people who are trying to eat a banana as they drive a car. I have tried that many times when I meet traffic police. And I make sure I'm trying to unpeel a banana and have my banana as I drive. It's not easy, yet it's not a crime punishable by law. But someone who is probably using their phone and they are on speaker phones or on headphones is punished for a crime of speaking, or a traffic offense of speaking on the phone while driving. And the fine payable is about 10,000 shillings. Again, a young person driving their mother's car is not able to, in fact, usually the tank is on E. It's on empty, it's always orange there. And you only fuel when you really have to or when you feel it's gonna stall. So if someone is telling you that the fine payable for talking on the phone while driving is 10,000 shillings, then it's easier to pay a bribe of 500 shillings or 1,000 shillings to a policeman. So I think the leadership we've elected needs to start rethinking that is the Traffic Act, for example, working for this nation or against this nation. Their intention was to deter, that's number one, and two, to raise more taxes, more money from taxes in this way. But what has happened, it has actually promoted bribery, because the policeman will tell you, "Twende utoe cash bail ya 5,000," and immediately you can start gauging, he's trying to tell you to bribe him at 2,000 shillings. So we need to review our law so that in as much as we want to punish the offense, let's get to the point where we are encouraged to feel that if the fine is 2,000 shillings for not obeying a zebra crossing, I'm better off paying 2,000 shillings and getting a receipt for it. But if you make zebra crossing the offense, the fine is 10, 20,000 shillings, then nobody will ever be charged in court for that offense.
You've widely mentioned the police, and I'm reminded of the statistics that we just ran there. And part of it says 47% believe most, if not all, police are corrupt. Do you agree?
I would say yes and no. I have not worked in the force before, but I have encountered them. And the circumstances of their life are also very different and very demanding and very interesting. They're interesting in the sense that you take a policeman, their pay is public knowledge. And if the person he's trying to arrest owns 3, 4, 5, 10 times more than this policeman, then it becomes very difficult for that policeman to be able to effect an arrest and take this person to court. Because this person is telling you, I can pay you twice your salary right now on the spot. So, and the circumstances of our life are such that the salaries they are earning are not even adequate to meet their needs. Their housing are not good enough for them. So this person has been put in a predicament where, accepting a bribe becomes so natural and so normal. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but from where they sit and from the salaries they earn and from the kind of exposure they have, you're sent to somewhere very far away from your family. The amount of money you're earning is about 20, 25,000. It's not even enough to pay the house for your wife and children. It predisposes you to corruption. So we need to rethink. The best paid people in this country are the least deserving of that kind of payment. Get an MCA, look at the salary they earn. Look at an MP and the salary they earn. Compare that to the service they offer to this nation, and you realize that we need to rethink our salary scale before we say our policemen are corrupt. And I'm not saying that we encourage them receiving bribes. I'm only saying that we predispose them to accept bribes.
Okay, I'll be getting back to you, Ben, but Charles and Ruth are here because they're what we call in our language our case studies, I would say, because the young people, and the research today or the findings are concerning the young people. So I want to get your experiences. I don't know if you're comfortable telling us if at any point you've, had to offer a bribe for any service. Let me start with you, Ruth.
I think, can I just say something on the topic?
Sure.
Because in fact, when I was told about it, the one thing that I thought that was very accurate was the fact that we are working with a system, as I said, that was broken, but at the same time, we are fighting for little or no resources. And we are fighting for resources that oil runs from the top. So what has happened is our leaders have now said, yo, I'm going to take everything that should be yours, I'm going to steal it all, fix yourself. And I'm going to give a case study, not personal, and maybe we'll do that later. There was a viral photo that showed of one position that had been put up in a very famous Kenyan hotel, and there were hundreds and thousands of young people lining up for that, because that is how desperate the Kenyan system is. Now let us go back. I have been in places where it's not only bribes, I have also been asked to give more than a bribe as a woman and as a young lady. So you're looking for a job, you do not have a job, and all they say is, hey, look, you're a youngster, you're a young girl, you know how this goes. And unfortunately, this comes from our mothers and our fathers, and they want us to give them something so that we could have something in return. So yes, it has happened to me. So I think now we go back to the moral fabric of society and say, how far am I willing to cross? And how far am I willing to take a stand and say, I am young, however, I am not going to end up like my fathers and mothers, unfortunately.
Then I'll be getting your response to that. But Charles, you have any experience you'd like to share?
Yes, I do. First of all, I would start by answering your question. No, I've never offered anybody a bribe. And that is basically why I would say I'm unemployed right now, because I've been applying for jobs and trying to get in touch with certain people who are at a better position of giving you a job, and the responses are like you just know you need to do something in order to get the job. And recently I know of somebody who applied for the census job. And this person was shortlisted, but was never notified to appear for the interviews. So this is how bad it has gotten. I mean,
Ben, let me get your response in regard to the points that Ruth raised here, especially as a woman. You know, you get to a point where you're not only asked for money, but there are other favors that are asked of you for you to get this position. And what I hear is, you know, once you give in, that won't be the last time. You'll be forced to give in, you know, again and again to now keep
the job.
Yes.
I think it's very unfortunate because first and foremost, society fails because of men. I usually say, for those who read the good book, the Bible, it says that when God put Adam in the garden, he gave him responsibility over the garden and everything that was there. And so when you see Kenyan society crumbling down, it's because the man who is supposed to be in charge of everything has failed. And when the man is not providing leadership, everything goes wrong. That's why if, for example, I am sitting in a position of leadership, and she comes to the office and I'm expecting a sexual favor from her so that she can get a job, it tells you that I have failed. And what will happen is that there are so many institutions right now that are not having holders who are competent, not because Kenya is devoid of holders who are competent for those offices, but because those who accepted to give in to such sexual favors are the ones who ended up holding those offices. And so you stand up to see now things going wrong in almost every other department. Not because Kenya does not have qualified people. I have had people saying that for a company, for example, like Safaricom to run, must have a foreigner. But in real sense, we are possessed of the DNA that makes good CEOs and good leaders of any company and any board and any government office. Only that when we have a chance now to appoint, select, or nominate those people, we use the wrong criteria. And so we end up, there's no way a good tree can give a bad fruit, and the vice versa. So we end up with a bad fruit, and we keep complaining that this fruit is bad. But the process of selecting the fruit was flawed in the first place. So we will keep complaining until it gets to the point when we accept and realize and discover that there's no single day you are going to use a bad criteria and get a good result. Yes.
Wow, there's no single day you'll use a bad criteria and get a good result.
Yeah.
Charles, if I could come back to you, because you did tell us you're unemployed, and if you're comfortable talking about this, if you could, like, look at your life and probably those that you schooled with, and I don't know if there's some that had to, offer bribes to get employed, and it's not a right thing to do. You did say you've never offered a bribe, but with time, could you consider it to at least get employed?
Maybe.
And I'm not promoting bribes, I'm just asking.
We are in a system whereby we are fighting for survival. I mean, it's survival for the fittest. So at one point, I may just get scared of my future and decide to slide into my pocket to give a bribe. Yeah.
You have friends who have given in?
I really don't know, but nowadays it's in the form of connection. Like, who do you know? That is how nowadays.
People.
Yeah.
The famous.
Yeah. So I think that is how nowadays bribes are being offered. The number of people you know and the positions they hold in certain institutions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a comment here from one of our viewers. He doesn't seem to agree with the question we're asking, but he actually asks us, what do you, KTN Kenya, think drives or motivates government officials, that is civil or state officials, to accept bribes? So he feels the question should have been the other way around. Ruth?
I think it is culture, one, and a way of life. And by that, there's something he said that we were having this conversation with my friend yesterday. In Kenya now, taking a bribe is connection. It is not a bribe. So one of the things that have come up is first how we pay our public and civil servants, but at the same time, it is a cultural and a mindset, a kind of a mindset. So they think that, hey, you guys, I earn 80,000 shillings or 20,000 shillings, that is not enough. That is not enough. So in their minds, they cannot sustain themselves with the 20,000 shillings that they have. So let us not think about police. Let us think about the one who earns 50,000 shillings as a civil servant, for example, in the Ministry of Migration. And he's thinking, I've been sitting here all day, I've been looking at people and they are just getting on my nerve. If I could get an extra 5,000 shillings, that would help me. And I would say that has come from the grassroots, where our leaders have taught us that it is okay to steal. So then we say, if this guy stole 5 billion Kenya shillings and 20 years later nothing has happened to them, I can take 1,500 shillings. That won't hurt me. So then it becomes a mindset, which then becomes a culture. Once a mindset is accepted, it becomes a culture. I think that's where we should start, because we can't say that we will change and have reforms of payment and pay rises all of a sudden and someone will earn 200,000 shillings. However, we can say we can change the culture and the mindset to a place where these guys say, hey, I like my job. So even when I earn 20 Gs and even if I earn 100 Gs, I am comfortable and content with who I am as a person, and I will accept what I get. I think that is where we should be starting from. And that question makes sense, but then they come to us, and I have friends who are in business who you have a Mercedes and you're 30 and you have a Range Rover, and a few years back I did not have a job, and you're thinking maybe, and he's like, maze, to connections, I know a guy, maybe I should hook you up. And for them it is because they feel they are not content with what they have, so it will never be enough. It is a mindset. So even if we have reforms, we should start with the mindset. Am I comfortable with what I have right now? And how can I learn to work with what I have right now to get to a better place?
Sure,
yeah.
sure. Charles, what do you think, regarding to the question that was posed there by our viewers, what drives these officials to accept the bribes? Or do you agree with what Ruth is saying?
Will you kindly repeat the question?
He's asking, in other words,
yes.
He says that we should have framed the question as opposed to asking what drives youth to offer bribes. The question should have been what drives the officials to accept the bribes.
I think what I think from my own perspective is that the people who can control the level of bribery are the top officials, are the top government officials. Yes, so they are in a better position to control the bribe because they are the people who possess the positions, and they are the ones who advertise the job opportunities. So if they do things the right way, and they are the people who set good examples, so we follow them. So if they refuse to accept bribes from us, then just like I said, there are few opportunities, and so many people are fighting for the opportunities. So if they just go the right way, select people in the right criteria, I think it would be better to control bribery from that position.
Ben?
I think to start with is peer pressure. My peers are driving Range Rovers. I am driving VW. There's a problem. So I'll do anything within my ability to make sure that I drive what they drive. There are places where people live and they tell you on that side of town you're existing, on this side of town you're living. And so if you're a government official and you get in, the first thing they tell you is at this level you're a director, you're not supposed to drive a certain car and so forth. And very many people do give in to that kind of pressure. I can tell you this, if you visit a country like Germany, the Volkswagen is called the people's car, the VW, Volkswagen, that when you go to the streets, generally that's the car. Every other person owns a VW. Then there will be one Range Rover, there will be one Mercedes, there will be one V8, intermittently, like that. In Kenya, when you come here, and even if you go to the United States of America, for example, there's the Camry. There's this vehicle that almost every family has one, because it's standard, that we are all earning almost the same amount of money, we are able to sustain ourselves, we are able to move. In this country, unfortunately, there is no vehicle you would say that almost every other family would afford because it's a family car. I mean, in fact, the fuel guzzlers and the bigger vehicles are more on the roads than any other. So it kind of gives us the impression that this is where life needs to be. Our MPs, for example, are now increasing their own salaries. And the reason they're increasing their salaries is because they probably feel that the taps to corruption are not open to all of them. And they want to take their children to schools. I don't want to mention names, but there are schools where children pay $500,000 a term. That's enough. I know a school in my ward where I live, where the fees for the year is 3,000 shillings. So if one child is paying 300,000, it means that the fee of one child from one wealthy person in this country can educate 1,000 children per year. For a whole year, 1,000 children. What we need to do is to go the example of Rwanda, where people are leaving private schools and now going to public schools, because public schools are cleaner, better, more funded, and so on and so forth. So it goes back to the question of leadership. If our leaders had thought that there's need for a law that no public servant should have their children going to a private school, because then it means you have no confidence in our own system of education. We've had ministers of education whose children are going to private schools. That is wrong. We've had ministers of health whose when they are sick, they go to private hospitals and they go abroad. That is wrong. We've had governors who've left the country to go and have an elastoplast removed in South Africa. That is wrong. He should have had that done in their own county. So what is predisposing our leaders to take money, that is bribery money, is because they want to live the life that this economy cannot support.
Great. Thank you so much. So we need to take a short break now, but of course we'll be back with the conversation. But I see a lot of your feedback. Chris Macharia is saying convenience. An officer will cuff you, make you go for endless walks around town in cuffs, make you late, and maybe make you spend a night on cold cell floors, while all he needs is a 200 note. Why should I have to undergo this? Another one here saying, Mohammed Isaac saying, because the leaders are corrupt and they work on corruption basis. Dennis saying, Kenyan system has been rooted onto corruption, that you can hardly get a job even if you're the only person doing an interview minus bribing or getting a connection. Continue sending in your feedback at KTN News KE, at Grace Career KE. When we come back, we'll be joining our reporter Stanley Mbishu from Muranga. He'll be speaking to various youth there just to, pick their minds and get their thoughts regarding this conversation that we have.